We're ready to go for another workshop Wednesday. Hello, everyone. We're going to paint some minis today. I always enjoy painting minis, and I don't want this to be the only thing I ever do on here, but every time I have an episode where I'm painting minis, I feel like, good, let's just do that. So we're going to do something a little different today, actually. I have some minis here. I'm going to play around with some stuff. Some of the minis I have today, these are just some of the normal minis I have. These are some grubs that I want to paint up. So I'm going to play around a little bit with different shades of paint and such. But I also have some other minis. These are some goblins. I don't know how you can see that goblin there. Cool little goblin. This is actually a resin miniature painted with a resin 3D printer. So I want to figure out or play around with that a little bit. Some very nice detail on these guys. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how well paint works on these. And this is also a resin mini, just a little snake thing. It's really just a snake on a little hex base there with an H on it for some reason. An H? No, it's kind of an H-ish. So apparently somebody put their little logo on there. But this is a snake, and I think I want to turn this into like a I don't know, something coppery. So I think I'm going to put like a copper rub onto this, make it look metallic. I think we'll see. So we're going to see how this goes. And I'm going to paint up some goblins. Oh, one second. Let me grab some of my existing goblins. It is fairly important to have some references. These are some goblins I printed out on my my just desktop plastic printer. Not bad at all, but I am going to try to copy this general color scheme. That green skin, and then they got some brown pants and such. A lot of goblins have brown pants, let's be honest. All right, so we want to do some green skin. I'm going to start with some green. Pull some out there, and then I'll probably add some gray and see what I have there. How much green am I going to need? I'm going to actually add a little bit more paint to that. A little more green. That may be more than I need, but I think I'll live. I'm going to cap that back up, actually. So we want some gray. If I add black, it's just going to get immediately like really, really dark. I've learned that. Let's just add that much gray. That might be too much right there. And mix that up. See what we get. I don't know. I actually rather like that kind of olive green. It's not nearly as dark as them, but that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. I think I'll add a bit more gray to that. Is it a bit more gray? It's a bit more gray. It's a fair amount more gray. It's okay with them being gray skinned too, instead of more obviously green. Yeah, I like that a lot. I like that shade there. So we're gonna go with that for their skin. It's not the same as their skin, although it will darken a little bit when I dry it out. But that's all right. Again, you can have just different kinds of guys. And so for this, again, I'm just going to kind of paint on, as usual, I'm just going to sort of slop this paint on, and I can always add more on other parts, so we'll probably end up with brown for the boots and such. Let me go ahead and see if I can't give you a little more zoom. Yeah. Let's see what that does. And I will try to keep this centered. I'm going to go with a very small brush. Just this brush here, this very small brush you can see. And we're going to grab some paint. And I'm just going to throw that onto his head. And I have never painted resin minis before, so I do not know if this is going to stick, if I'm going to need lots of different coats of paint here. I'm just going to find out. This particular goblin is shirtless, but he does have a quiver on his back, so there's going to be that brown strap going down. And sure enough, this is not actually sticking too well, from what I can tell. I mean, it's covering. But I feel like I'm going to need another coat once this is on to really make it right. The resin is sort of a pale white, or white, as Bob Ross liked to say. So we're going to go ahead and get some green on here, see what we end up with. I'm definitely not displeased with the overall effect of this color. It's not really going in. Oh, do they have hair? Yeah, they do have a little bit of hair, so I'll probably have to come back in and touch on that. And gotta get the part of his arm there, holding that bow. So yeah, it's sort of a mottled flesh tone now, or green skin tone, with that resin not really taking the paint well, but that's not too bad. That's really pretty doable, skin tone wise. Okay, and then he's got a sort of a loincloth on, and then boots. So we need to paint his thighs. Get those in. There's getting some thigh action going there. And then over here, and like I said, I'll probably end up throwing some brown down for his clothes. But actually, those are not boots. Those are like, I don't know, the leg warmers, basically. But it looks like he has just bare feet. So I'm going to paint those. Yeah, no, there are definitely toes on that. Wow, that's amazing. This with his resin, I can tell that he has toes. That's pretty crazy detail. Don't know if you can tell. The bow broke, sadly, when I was taking it out of the printer and removing the supports. The bow, if you look at the bow, actually, obviously there should be a little bit more here on the top compared to the bottom. Such is life. Such is life. So we will get in there. As usual, I'm not too worried about slopping paint on the base. I figure I could always come back in and repaint the base if I wanted to, but also, I don't care if my base is slightly off. It's got a few little splotches on it. Like, to me, that is not worth getting worried about. If I can just get in there and get the side of that foot. Okay. Cool. I do believe I've got a little bit underneath that thigh. Not worrying about what's underneath that loincloth. So yeah, I think I've got all of the exposed skin painted up. So there's that first goblin. Oops. Having a tough time understanding that there. In a little bit. No, it doesn't like that. A little bit more. There we go. So there's that goblin. Again, not bad. I think once we come back with some brown and paint that up, that'll look very nice. And he's already drying a little darker. So that's my arrow guy. I have a couple of sword goblins. Similarly, we've got sort of a kilt going on there. And then these same kind of, yeah, leg warmers, I think, and feet. Okay, I can live with that. So here's our guy. Now you'll notice one of his arms is a little bit off. That's because I did not set up the printer correctly for the resin print here, and so it did not print his arm. And actually, I just broke off more of his arm. No. So he's now a one-armed goblin, and that was always going to be kind of the idea, is that, okay, there are one-armed monsters out there. We lost an arm in an accident at some point, so okay. Let's go ahead and just paint in and give him his skin tone. Now, if you wanted to be really, interesting with this, really detailed, you could go in and give each one a slightly different skin tone, and adjust the tint of this paint. I am personally not that focused on that yet. To me, that's just a little bit more work than I'm willing to do for these. On the other hand, I am sitting here painting minis for hours on end, so why do I have to talk? So he has hair. I'm gonna paint all the hair green. Not really because I want to keep it green, but because I figure I can always come back in and add a color on top, and that will be okay. Does he have a breastplate? Doesn't look like it. And I am perfectly fine with the idea that he already has some paint on his hair, but I'm just going to be coming back and adding another coat on top, and it will actually bind better than this. Okay. It'll stick to that first layer of paint a little better. So we'll see. He actually has some bracers on, so I might not paint those. Yeah, he has like a bracer on one arm. So we'll do the rest of his. I do think we'll come back on these guys and do another coat of paint although this modeling effect is not terrible. And let's just see how much of the hand I can get. Nice and green there. Trying not to completely slop it everywhere, but again, if I do, that's okay, because I'll always be coming back with the paint for the other parts. Just trying to be fairly subtle about it. In other words, I'm not deliberately throwing paint everywhere. I'm just kind of letting God sort it out. Okay. So there's the upper body. Oops, a little bit more on there. On the arm there. A bit more on that. The ears need some extra work. And then we've got the legs, of which there's not much exposed skin around that kilt, but a little bit. Worth going in there and getting that. But, ooh, I am slopping that quite a bit. So let's fix that. Cool. All right with that. And we'll do the feet. Interesting that these goblins all have bare feet. I wonder if that's a thing, that goblins want their feet to touch the earth. You just can't bear having their feet clothed, if you will, trapped in boots. I like that. That may be a little bit of lore for my D&D games. Actually, both of my regular D&D groups finished up their campaigns recently. or at least one ended the campaign at level 20, which was nice, and the other just reached kind of a pause point. So we're going to talk about that actually this weekend, what we want to do next. Where we want to go. Oops. Yeah. What will be the next step in the evolution of those games? So we may end up coming back to baddies like goblins. Maybe facing these guys soon. Okay, so here's that goblin. Trying to get it to focus. Not really happy with that. Yep. There we are. So there's that goblin. One-armed goblin. Let that dry for a bit and then come back. Fortunately, that's not the only melee goblin I printed. So there's a... Oops. So there's another one. And that one printed correctly with the shield and all that kind of stuff. So maybe a little harder to paint, actually, because that shield's kind of in the way, but we'll see. So again, start with the head. Start with the head, get that all nice and painted up. Give him his skin. And there we go. It's funny how much easier it gets when you are repeating a mini. When you've just done one and you know where all the nooks and crannies and crevices are. Really helps. Things go much faster than they would otherwise. I have way more paint than I need, as is so typical for me. One other thing I like about these resin prints is that the supports come off much more cleanly. So I don't have nearly as many little bits and bobs of plastic sort of hanging off. So it's just a cleaner model in general. It's always nice. Just get in there. Now you may be looking at this thinking, wow, he's getting a lot of detail. That's because my brush is small. By choosing a small brush, I can get into those little spots and not get it everywhere. So it's all in the brush size. And there's a little bit of getting used to the process, but otherwise in general, it's really that. Okay, and then there's clearly a hand holding the shield. That's how that works. So let me do that. There's actually a little bit of plastic sticking up, kind of supporting that I could not get off. So I'm not going to be able to remove that. But I'm okay with that. Get that in there. Okay, I think we've got that. And then we're going to go up and do this. Get the hand in. Yeah. See how much we can do with that. These resin printers are crazy. There's actually a $200 resin printer for sale now. It's just nuts. $200 for quality like this. Just unbelievable. All right, so there's that. I need a little bit more on the arm. All right, then we'll do the legs. That little bit of exposed thigh and knee. It's hard making armor that will protect the knees because they have to bend and move around a lot. So those are a little more commonly exposed on guys like this. Okay. More on that part of it. Okay, and then, yeah, I like that idea that goblins are always barefoot. I just think there's something wrong about not being able to feel the earth with your toes. It's just there's a nice little bit of lore that makes things come alive. I'm always a little suspicious of sort of random lore when you just add details that are just kind of there to be details. You know, I don't play games for lore. I don't play games to learn random facts about your world. But sometimes you get these bits of detail that really are evocative, that tell you something about people or characters or, again, species like these. Okay. So here you go. There's our goblin. Again, having a little difficulty focusing in. One sec. Come on. There we are. So there he is. Doing pretty good. These are delicate, so I'm trying to be careful there. All right, so we have 2 more goblins. Let's see here. Very little on this one in terms of paint. This is a goblin priestess, apparently. So we've got this goblin with her hands out. You can see there pretty well. So we're going to go ahead and, but she is wearing pretty much full clothes, but we're going to give her, obviously her face is going to be exposed. I do not know what color her hair is going to be. Generally speaking, my goblins have black hair. She looks like she might have some really fiery, like red hair or something. I just kind of like that idea. It's a really remarkable kind of hair color there. But like with the other stuff, I'm going to go ahead and paint all of that. Give all of that the base green. So that any color I add on will stick better to that green. And also, if there are a couple little gaps in that paint job, you'll see green instead of white, which would look weird. It's always nice to have that extra kind of insurance on your paint jobs. Okay, so there's that. Here's her head. We have hands, certainly. The hands should be green. I don't think she's wearing gloves. So we'll give her hands. There we are. That's kind of satisfying to see those hands really come together. Give her a hand, why don't you? Yeah, that feels natural. It's like she's wearing a white suit. And then, oh, she's got boots on. Wow. Yeah, those are not. Huh. All right. Yeah, and pants going all the way down to the boots. So everything else here is going to be a different color. Cool. So we just got face, and hands painted. Looks pretty good. Not because of me, but just because of the detail of the mini. Add a little bit more paint there. We'll probably need another coat. Okay. And then we have a goblin chieftain. Ooh. Very scary. And so what do we got? We got the head, obviously. He's got on like some kind of wooden bracer and other stuff, and it looks like pants and some kind of toad's sandals. That's really weird. So let's start with, and he's also got a fun little like Viking helmet. Although Vikings didn't wear those helmets. But one can forgive the stereotype or the mistaken history. in there. There's his lovely lustrous hair. Another interesting thing, these folks all seem to have fairly long hair. Not sure why that is. Alright. Paint the rest of that in. Again, I don't need to paint this hair, but it will, partly I'm doing that because it will give me kind of line of sight on that hair, so I know where the hair begins and ends relative to the rest of the mini. Doing the ears as well there. Oh, he's got little things hanging down on the helmet. That's cool. All right, so I think we have exposed. What are those? Upper arms. Somewhat. So you have a little bit of the exposed upper arms. And then the hands, obviously, are also exposed. So we will give him his hands. I think he should actually have hands. That's only kind to give him the hands that are there. Put in that green everywhere. Yeah, that definitely feels like it will need another coat. Okay, and same thing over here with the upper arm. I really can't tell where that begins and ends, so I'm going to kind of just give him some green skin there, and hopefully it'll make more sense when I paint the rest of it. He's going to be really fiddly to paint because of where this shield is. You know, getting paint in here, you know, back there behind the shield, and it's going to be rough. So we'll see. Glad I don't have a bunch of these to paint, just a couple at a time. And there's a, I don't know what you call it, basically a handle on that shield that he's holding on to, which I'm also getting paint on. Again, I'm okay, I'll come back to that eventually. So yeah, it looks like he's wearing pants. And are those, it's hard to tell. There's definitely, all right, I'm going to say, yeah, I think he is. That's really interesting. So he's wearing basically sandals with a big old strap and then an iron spike at the end, which strikes me as highly impractical. Like all that weight would be on the front of your foot. But that is what he's wearing. And I have got a bit of my brush that is sticking out. Okay, I think I can keep that in if it's nice and wet. Maybe, maybe not. I have to cut that back. Let me get the other side, then I'll show you. Kind of hard to see until it's colored in. But he's got these ridiculous sandals on. Hey, Game Escape. Yep, started the July 4th weekend, which I'm looking forward to. Had some friends in last night. We'll be having some more friends in over the weekend, which I'm definitely looking forward to. As opposed to another weekend home alone. Okay, so you can see now, hopefully, how he has these like sandals. With this spike. In fact, I need to get in because you can actually see his little toes on the very tips of the sandals. Yeah, I think those are his toes. Yeah, they are. I will get this in here. How you doing tonight, Game Escape? What's new in your world? Yeah. So he's got little toes sticking out of these absurd sandals. That is this guy. Battle sandals. Pretty crazy. Okay. So I think he's pretty well painted. All right. So we got them. Let's go back to our archer, who by now should be pretty well dried out, or dried out enough for us. So I'm gonna go back in and just. That is right, Game Escape. This is the HomeCon weekend. So that'll be fun. I'm just gonna slap a little bit more paint on this goblin, covering the same areas I went over before, just to really thicken up. Yeah, I definitely need to do that. Got to go around here to his back, and just to make that paint job a little more even. Fill in any of those spots and gaps where the paint is just kind of thin. And when we're done with this, which will just take a few more moments, I think you'll see it'll be a much crisper definition on the skin tones there. And you can always go in and see, oop, I missed this little spot. I'll just give it a little bit extra push. Yep. And then we need a bit more, like I said, a bit more on his shoulder there, just to finish that out. Nope, maybe a bit more on the ear. Give him a nice green ear. Yeah. Oh, I need to get some in there too. Dude, missed a lot of little spots. Okay. So now, hopefully you can see how the paint job on that is just a lot better defined. Okay, and then we go back to our one-armed dude. We will do the same thing. Yeah, you can see how thin the paint job is on this one. Maybe if it'll focus in. Nope, doesn't want to. Yeah, I can kind of see. So let's just add a bit more to our poor one-armed goblin. Seems pretty fierce though. I think he's found a way to make it through life. Although knowing goblins, he probably will not live to a ripe old age. Goblins generally don't. Although in my default world, goblins are more common. They're more like peddlers and traders who go around and are not necessarily trusted, because they're a little mischievous, but they're kind of everywhere. And if you want something, there's probably a goblin who has it and can at least point you in the direction of how to get that thing. So they're seen as a little strange because of that. Vacation, nice Game Escape. Yeah, I'm definitely glad to have a little vacation. Like, I love my job, but there's definitely time for a little bit of time off. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So there's that fleshed out paint job. Definitely much stronger. And then we have his brother, the two-armed goblin. Has all the arms he was born with. Although who knows, perhaps the other person wasn't born with an arm. Certainly possible. And so we'll go ahead and get that in there. So yeah, not every mini needs multiple coats of paint, but if you see that the paint's going on and it's just kind of thin or splotchy, that's your sign that, okay, no big deal. Just go back in a second time and add a second coat, and that should resolve any issues. I have yet to find a mini where paint just will not go on it at all, although granted my experience is limited. So generally speaking, it's one of those things where you will find something. I'm going to Tokyo. Nice. I do not have a problem with long flights. I'm just used to it. And also, you just, there's a point where you just lay back in your seat and just sit there. And you just relax and you doze. I can't sleep very easily on planes. Like, at best, I can get some fitful sleep. But I can just zone out and relax. And you do podcasts, you do books on tape, or audiobooks. You bring some actual physical books. That's good too. And you can definitely find, things to do. Just relax. So yeah, I thought it's not that bad. As long as you just lay into it. You're just like, okay, yes, this is going to be a very long flight. I will live with it. Oddly, the flight back is a lot easier. Partly because you're remembering all the stuff you did on your trip, but also because you're like, I'm going to be home soon. Yeah, that's much better. Cool. And then we have our spellcaster gate lady. Who's getting a little extra paint here, just to thicken that up. Yeah. Cool. And a bigger, taller person, back problem. Ooh, yeah. I can understand that. Health problems. Not health problems, but, back problems, yeah. That definitely makes it harder. I hear that. But Tokyo's definitely something that you will never forget doing. It will be part of you for the rest of your life. And a very deep part of you. Something that very few other people will have ever done. You can always look back and say, man, yep, I did that thing. I actually did it. All right. And then where's there he is. Our absurd goblin leader. And it's actually drawing pretty dark. Not quite as dark as the others, but definitely where it's like, okay, yep, those look like the same kind of creatures. Just slightly different skin tone. And there's nothing wrong with a different skin tone. Right? Let's see. This goes there. This goes here. This goes here. Doo-doo-doo. Get that hand nice and fleshed out. Yeah, that might make sense. Break it up a little bit. I know somebody, I forget who would do, or who did, sort of, they went to LA, then went to Singapore. And that's a pretty short hop, as I recall, and then Singapore to Tokyo. Certainly shorter than, like, LA to Narita Airport. Assuming that's where one goes. Okay. Cool. And we'll get those feet in. And then that will be that much of the goblins. I think I will then move over to the grubs. The grubs might get this sickly green skin color. I kind of like it. Might add a bit more gray to it. But I do kind of like the idea of this weird green color for those grubs. And we'll give him his toes. Paint in those toes. There we are. Okay. Hey, gorilla. There we are. With that paint job. What I take with me from my trip to Japan was the oral impact it had on you, if any. What I took with me from my trip. So what I took with me to Japan, we'll go back both sides. Um, I just took a like a overhead carry bag, so I didn't check any luggage. And inside that, I had one extra. So I was wearing jeans and a shirt like this. I brought with me another pair of jeans. I think three more shirts. I wore a jacket, a light jacket. Um, I think like four or five pairs of underwear, a couple of pairs of socks. Um, and then I brought a little travel laptop. And now I'd bring a tablet. Um, and I'm trying to think what else. Um, Camera. So I brought an actual full scale camera, especially like my phone. Because the phone at the time I think it was a really bad had a really bad camera. So about that stuff, not much else, frankly. I like to pack light, so I took that over there, and obviously I had my Japan Rail Pass with me, which you need when you go over there. So I brought that, and then I brought back mostly gifts for other people. So I found a mug at the Gundam Cafe that I brought back for a friend, and just other bits and pieces from around Japan, just souvenirs basically for friends. I'm sure I brought back. I can't remember what it is, frankly. I'm sure I brought back something. I bought chopsticks made out of cherry wood from a samurai village in Japan, in northern Japan, and that's what I use as chopsticks here at home. So that was my personal souvenir, which was cool. All right. Overall impact it had on me and Annie a lot. I went alone, so I didn't have any, friends with me or anyone to help me out. I knew very little Japanese, but I had the tickets, so I was gonna go. I paid for it, so I ended up going anyway, and it was nerve-wracking, but I went and I did the thing, and you know what? It was fun. I was able to do everything I needed to do and had no issues really. Now for this, what brush do I want? Do I want a bigger? I'm just going to use a bigger brush. Why not? So I'm going to use a nice big brush on these grubs. Need more paint than that. Just going to cover these things with paint. And I'm probably going to do... Whoa! Yep, it's going everywhere. All right, I need a firmer grasp on the grub. Because going to another country is challenging enough. Going to a country with a different language is even harder. But going alone, that was challenging. So I basically realized that I could take care of myself. That I could do it. And when I went, I remember telling myself, okay, worst comes to worst, you take a taxi back to the airport. There's bound to be a hotel at the airport. And you can just hole up in the hotel. The people there will definitely speak English. And you can just sort of sit in the hotel for the rest of the trip if you're that freaked out. But no, I went from place to place. I had really no problems with transportation. A lot of stuff there is in English. And so it was just really, it just boosted self-confidence a lot. So that was nice. And I got to see stuff that, you would just never see otherwise. Experiences that other folks just aren't gonna have. Going down the river in Tokyo on a boat designed by Leiji Matsumoto, where the characters from Captain Harlock narrate your journey, and Maytel tells you about stuff you're seeing was just magical. And I'm sure that narration's not there anymore. Boat's still there, but it exceeded my expectations going in, unquestionably. It was magical, and I don't mean that in that kind of sort of condescending way of Japan is this fairy tale land, but it's like Europe is magical. It's like these places that are just very distinctive is wonderful. It's going someplace that is very much its own place. There's not a McDonald's every corner. Don't get me wrong. I like a Big Mac, but it was just really nice being in a place, and also going to a land that is very different, but also being like, that's a Japanese farmhouse, right? Like it reminded me of all the things I'd seen in anime and Japanese movies and such. So, yes, it was there. It was slightly familiar, or more accurately, when it felt overwhelmingly different, I could always at least see something, in that vista that was recognizably like something I had seen in, an anime or a Japanese live action movie or something. So that was really, that really helped a lot. I was there for 10 days. So it was a significant amount of time, but also not too crazy. Anything that surprised me that I wasn't expecting. It's obvious, but I will never forget after landing in Tokyo, getting on the train, and getting to Tokyo. My hotel was in Tokyo, but it was a little bit off the beaten path. So I had to take the subway from the train, took that, and there are English signs around, the trains and the subway. So that was, it took some time to get oriented, but I could make it work. And then going up the stairs in the subway onto a Japanese street corner for the first time, and just walking out into a place that honestly felt like Mars. It felt just completely alien, because just none of the signs are oriented the way you're used to. Every landmark that you're used to in a city is different. Yes, there's concrete and curbs and so forth, but it just feels completely unique. And I promptly turned around, went back down to the subway, found a police officer, and asked for specific directions to where I was going, because I just knew sort of generally where I was going, and I was like, I am not going to be able to navigate this. So that happened. So yeah, it was definitely, Japan. It was its own culture. Memory stands out the most. Gosh. What leaps to mind is I spent a night in Kakunodate, which is a small samurai town in northern Japan. One of the front desk personnel at the hotel spoke a little English, school English. Obviously, she'd taken English in school, but didn't have to work with English speakers a lot, because this was a small hot springs town. So this is where people go, on vacation in Japan. That was the only person who spoke English in this entire town that I could tell. The person at the train station could a little bit as well, I will admit. But the day I got there, I finally found the hotel. Discovered that writing down the name of the hotel in English doesn't necessarily help, because none of the signs are in English, so you can't necessarily tell what the place is. So that was the thing, and then there was so I got to the inn, walked around a little bit, and basically slept that night, took a bath, Slept that night, and then that morning I walked around Kakunodate, which has a river flowing through it with these um, designs in the riverbed that were put in there, I don't know, 100 years ago, and is lined with trees. And it's this gorgeous stretch of river lined with these trees that were just coming into bloom, or just coming into the autumn, the red colors. This was a famous sort of tourist spot where people would show up to picnic under the trees in the autumn, and I just got there earlier than the normal season, so I was getting to enjoy some of that. Walking along that river in this small town where there was almost nobody out, like I was pretty much the only person there. At least walking along this riverbank, one or two people like jogging, but otherwise I was just walking along, taking occasional pictures. And for me, that was, I'll never forget that, because I was in a place that is unlike anything I will ever be able to experience in America, and it just kind of captured Japan for me. But I have lots of other cool experiences, right? Like that. That was just one of those things that kind of, that's what comes to mind immediately now. Let's see here. Well, that's the thing, Game Escape, is that, yeah, cell phones are great, but the roaming data charges in Asia are very different than they are in other parts of the West. So I was going to be charged something like $5 a megabyte to use the phone, to use my cell phone. So I was like, nope, I'm not going to do that. Yeah. I did not eat much in the way of interesting food in Japan because I have a very sensitive stomach, and I did not want to kill myself. Yeah, yeah. Phone rates in Asia are nuts. If you're out of, you know, if you have a domestic, plan and domestic carrier and all that, it's you get great rates. But if you're international coming in, I could, there may be plans that work, but I could not find any that weren't just injuriously expensive. So basically, what I would do is at the hotel the night before, I would pull up my little laptop, connect to the hotel Wi-Fi, and then plan out my trip and like basically write it down. And like, okay, I'm going here, I'm going here, going there, and I would just go use paper basically. No Google Maps. So my phone, a lot of the times I left my phone, there in the hotel, shut off because I did not want an app to suddenly start downloading, a 500 megabyte update, right? So that, yeah, I basically kept the phone off the entire time, and then just used like laptop on Wi-Fi just for emails and such. But that was all right. So am I going to? I think I am. Yeah. Oops. So I'm gonna add some paint here. These are drying, but they're not dry yet. So I'm gonna start going back to these guys and giving them pants and such, just with some basic brown. I may have to pull some brown out of here. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. The brown's down near the bottom of the pot, and so if I try to dig in there, I'm just not gonna be able to get it out. So I'm gonna pull out a little bit of brown, and then dab that. And this is not a particularly small brush, so I want to be careful. I probably should clean off that really small brush. But for now, oh, and I did not get, I was a bad boy. I did not paint his hand. It's funny. Let me do that. Yeah, this brush is kind of dry. So yeah, I was kind of internet-less in Japan, but that's fine. Like I really didn't need it. You can get temporary phones in Japan as well. that are on like NTT Docomo or any of the various brands. I know that's what a lot of folks do, but I couldn't figure out a way to do that easily. I mean, I'm sure there are ways. It's just one of those things where researching lots of things, and that one just didn't come together. And it's probably changed in the last few years too. Okay, see if I can get this bow painted up. I'll come back with some like silver for the arrow tip. But we'll just try to get the shaft of that arrow brown. When we see the photos, they may be on my Flickr. They should be. Flickr.com/Brent Newhall, I think. Or maybe Gurney5, I don't know. I will look that up one of these days. See if I can find them. I took a lot of photos. And then uploaded the good ones, pretty much. Best I could. Yeah, so we're just getting all these parts of him nice and painted in. This might be tough. Getting in there. Okay. Yep. Probably should have gone in a little closer on some of this skin. Would have been nice to have had some wiggle room when I'm painting around these spots. But such is life. You do what you can with what you got. So yeah, Japan was wonderful. If I went back, I'd probably plan a few more things. I was pretty ad hoc with what I visited and went to see. I mean, obviously I had some stuff planned out. But when you can't speak the language, and so it's harder for you to like hop on a bus, for example, it was just harder to visit things like random temples when you just wanted to. So like when I was in Kyoto, I walked around a bit and just, looked for various things. Like I found some neat things. But Kyoto is pretty spread out. I mean, it was the capital city for centuries. So it's not like everything is all condensed within a couple of city blocks. So I would have been better off being a little more, planning that out a bit more. Now I am painting all of this the same kind of neutral brown color, because like with the other stuff, I can always come back in and give that something, give that a very particular color. But for now, I'd rather give it just kind of a two-tone treatment kind of a thing. Just so it has that brown on it. All right, and same thing with his leg warmers. Gonna make those brown as well. I mean, it's all leather, right? So we figure it can all be pretty much brown. But I could come back with a couple different shades of brown later just to make that look better. And then get these bracers in. Again, I'm not sure what these are meant to be. I guess just like leather shin guards, basically. And the secret here is to not get too greedy and just try to throw paint everywhere. Like you always want to be fairly careful. Yeah, so I basically ate like convenience store food, convenience store sushi, that kind of stuff, which granted in Japan is excellent. I mean, their convenience store stuff is very high quality. I mean, compared to our convenience store stuff. So it's not like you're gonna get, you know, convenience store sushi over here that has a deservedly poor reputation. But in Japan, it's like, no, that's a lot of people in Japan. Like that's what they, you know, they get their sushi that way. Not all the time, but it is an understandable way of getting food. Um, cool. So I got to admit, these resin minis, I mean, they're taking this paint pretty well. Like, that looks pretty good. Don't know. Don't know why. Like these look rather nice. Who's CK and Cooking with CK? Um, so that was 4chan's cooking um, board back in the day. Back when I was trying to hang out in like /A, and realizing that is not a really useful place to hang out. I tried some of the other boards, and their CK board, which was just about cooking, was actually pretty decent. Like, folks had pretty good advice, and would actually discuss in a way that wasn't just, constant screaming matches, or just constant trolling. Really, I mean, that's 4chan's big problem, is just constant trolling. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try doing some cooking videos, and I posted them and basically directed them right to CK, and like they got some attention. Like some folks commented on them, like they weren't immediately taken down, but obviously it didn't really last very long. That is not a very effective audience, unless they suddenly decide, oh, you know, you decided to support you, so we're going to send you 3 billion views at once. So yeah, that was the initial genesis of that. Shout out to CK. Odd how the internet has evolved. This is back when 4chan was like, you know, a thing, but it was still just basically a bunch of anime nerds hanging out. Like, it wasn't this massive force for social change. It was just where we talked about anime. Yeah. I think it only lasted a couple of months on 4chan before I was like, these guys are kind of jerks. You know, and any community is going to have some jerks, but the level of jerkdom on 4chan was just so high. It's like, this really isn't worth it. Okay, then he has these bracers. Again, I'm just going to give them some brown. Probably go back in with some kind of color, but yeah, it's interesting. I think just the extra detail on these really helps that paint come out. I think with the other minis, because they're just a little, you know, not as detailed, they just don't feel as strong. And I'll put some brown on the tip of that sword. And I mean, not to brag, but I do think my painting skills have improved somewhat. So I think that's also helping a little bit. Cool. There's our one-armed sword goblin. Looking pretty good. I have played some Skyrim. I actually played it on the Switch, and got really sucked into that for a while. So that was pretty recently, like within the past couple of years. Played it pretty obsessively for like a couple of weeks, and then it was weird. Just kind of got this point where I was like, okay, and done. Like I got kind of stuck at a point, and then I was like, you know what? I've kind of gotten what I want out of this game. Didn't finish it, but I definitely enjoyed my time with it. The world, I don't know. There wasn't too much in the world to suck me in personally. Like definitely some world building there. Definitely some stuff. But I guess I hadn't gotten deep enough in to really get sucked into it. And I'm not one of these people who reads all the lore entries. Right? Like I want it to be relevant in play. So that didn't help me personally. I could tell there was a lot of extra detail to this world, but I was busy fighting skeletons. One thing I really did like about Skyrim, though, is that it did feel, it had a grittiness to it. It had a lived-in quality, where it's not just, town, wilderness, town, wilderness, town, wilderness. No, it's like this place is here because there's a mill. This place is here because it's easily defendable. Everything felt much more thought out than your typical fantasy world. I loved Breath of the Wild, but those places in it felt like just, we're going to throw a village here. And I know, obviously, these things go back to other Zelda games, but I just didn't really buy a lot of the kind of all that stuff. That said, I really appreciated that, like, people come out of their places in the morning. Okay. People come out of their houses in the morning, they go to work, they go back into their houses, and they sleep at night. Like, that really appealed to me. These were people with jobs and lives and things like that. As ridiculous as that is, and as, artificial as that is, it just helped to sell the world a little bit. I've read a fair amount of fantasy. Less than sci-fi, but I definitely like both genres. Favorites, Lord of the Rings, obviously. I loved the Prydain Chronicles. So, the second book in the series is The Black Cauldron. It's the book that Disney movie was based on. Which I've actually never seen the Disney movie. Like, I've seen bits and pieces, but not, like, sit down and watch it, which I should do one of these days. But yeah, love that. And let's see what else. Look over at my fantasy collection, which is a small collection now. Where's my fantasy? Okay, yeah. I loved The Wheel of Time growing up. My sort of teens and young adults years. I read The Wheel of Time pretty obsessively. I was a very active member on the online forums for that. I was a pretty big Wheel of Time guy until book 8, at which point I was like, okay, this is never going to end. So one of these days I may go back and finish it, but yeah. Not champing at the bit, I'll put it that way. No, not Goblin King yet. We need our Shamaness. I think I'll just give her brown all over. And maybe come back and punch that up later. Probably not even in this session, but just give her that first round. It's tough. Lord of the Rings was just so influential, but it is such its own thing. It is such its own. It has very specific goals. Tolkien was trying to do specific things with Lord of the Rings, in terms of language and so forth. The other people read Lord of the Rings and love it, and they try to do Lord of the Rings. And it's not that Lord of the Rings is this unachievable height of complexity or depth. It's an impressive work, no question. But the problem is, so many people try to replicate it without understanding kind of its influences, without understanding what it's going for, without trying to do the same things it's trying to do, and so their books fall flat. And I say that as somebody who wrote a bad teen fantasy novel after reading Lord of the Rings and being like, I want to do that. And so I tried writing a Lord of the Rings, and I failed miserably. So yeah, it's one of the big sort of albatrosses around the neck of the fantasy genre, is that so many people try to basically do Lord of the Rings without having the nervous system of the Lord of the Rings, without having those goals and desires and those that direction of how we do all this. I actually kind of like the idea that she dresses all in this one leather. She has bare feet. She has toes. I was wrong. Okay. Cool. I'll have to come back over that then. I can see her toes. That's cool. So that is a thing for whoever modeled these minis. Goblins always have bare feet. As in, they don't wear shoes, not as in the feet of a bear. Well, that could be a thing in fantasy. So I think it's one of the reasons too why I never got really too deep into fantasy, because so many people were just trying to do Lord of the Rings, and I was like, that isn't what you're doing. So I'll come back to her, hopefully, if I remember, and give her her. Oh, I don't have her green anymore. That sucks. Yeah, give him his brown. Hopefully, I can just come back and use that darker green, and it won't be noticeable for her feet. Just her feet, but we'll see. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. So the plan here now is I'm going to finish up all this stuff for these goblins. And I think just the brown for these. I will come back with some silver for the swords and the blades and such. I think I might also give them hair. I might paint in their hair. But I'm not going to do everything else. I'm not going to do all the details, in other words, in this session. We'll finish up the grubs. And we will kind of look at all this stuff at that point. I'm very glad that these minis worked out. I was afraid that the paint might just not stick at all. But seems okay. Seems okay. Okay. Need to get the pommel of that sword. Probably might come back with silver on that, actually. I do like. I'm kind of two minds about having minis with bases, because with the base, you do end up getting a little bit of paint on the base. Like I said, I don't mind, but it's also kind of like, it does look a little goofy. But it's so nice to hold on to that base, to have that just to work with. Yeah, actually, some of his shield broke when I was taking him off as well, but I actually like that. I like the idea that he has this broken shield that he's using. It's very befitting of a goblin war chief that he has this favored broken shield that he's been using over and over, and is just kind of his, that very almost iconic bit of weaponry. Maybe he's known as, Gerda Broken Shield. That's his thing. So one neat thing about minis is that they can kind of suggest character to you, because you can look at all the different details on them and say, oh, I wonder if this is really a thing. Like, it's here. It exists physically on the mini, so I can assume it's actually intentional. It's part of the character. It's often a thing in writing where you'll be working on a character and you'll add a thing just sort of one-off in a scene, and suddenly you realize, oh yeah, no, that is central to that character. Making that impulsive choice, that is a very impulsive character, actually. And that should define them. So often you can really flesh that out that way. I know a lot of writers like to use certain online randomizers and such specifically for that, so they can come up with kind of random details and such for their characters, and now those are facts that they write to. It's really hard to write things kind of ex nihilo, just coming up with things that fit entirely. Do these sandals. Do that little horn, which I'm gonna again paint just so we have a coat, and I may come back with like a steel color or something. Just give it that extra punch. Okay. Don't know how I'm going to do the bottom of the sandals. I might just try. So I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on the edge of my brush and then try to push that around. Yeah, that's working pretty well, actually. Just kind of run it around the bottom edge of that sandal. Okay, yeah, it gets a little bit in the on the base, but I think it's appropriate. It's a little weird that the Goblin War leader does wear some kind of shoes, but okay. Helmet. Yeah, helmet should be brown. And I may put something on there. I don't know. I think it should have it should be metal. So let me just throw, it would be a bad idea to paint part of it brown and part of it not brown and then come back with another color, because then it would kind of bleed through weirdly. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw more brown on there, but I'm not going to go too careful on that. Cool. Okay, so there's our Goblin War Leader. You do not want to focus tonight, do you? With his sword and his stuff. So then, do we have... Where is it? Okay, yeah. So that's all done. Let me come back and try to paint in the spellcaster's feet. Again, we're going to use that the new green, the new darker green for her feet, and I think that's close enough. Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah. Got a bit too much paint on the brush there. But that will be recognizably feet. I don't know. I'm thinking they may look like boots. Those look like toes. No, they're going to be... And again, I think this is one of those things where I like the lore of always having bare feet. So I'd rather have that. I'm going to force that on the mini, if you will. Cool. All right, so that's done. Now, we'll go back and we will finish out these grubs. Not finish them out necessarily, but give them the other half of their paint job. Oops, that's dried. 1 second. Get that brush a little easier to work with. Obviously, I will be going back and painting these up soon, but okay. Or rather, cleaning up these brushes soon. Actually, on my to-read pile, one of these days is Lord Foul's Bane, which is a very controversial fantasy novel. And like, I understand where he's going with it, but also it's I think I need to be in just the right mood to read that novel, because it's gonna be rough. I know. The main character is not a nice person in a lot of ways, and does something really horrible early into the first novel, and like spends the rest of the series like guilty about it, and kind of paying for it, if you will. Or more accurately, that colors kind of all the rest of the story. But still, it's going to be one of those things. So we'll see. It's controversial because the main character has, I forget the medical term, but he has leprosy. And it's set in the modern day. And he's become a very, very bitter man. His wife's left him. And the problem with that disease is that you have to check your body constantly, because it basically kills your nerve endings. So it is very easy for you to accidentally cut yourself or hurt yourself and not realize that you're bleeding profusely. So he's very hyper aware of his body, and he's very frustrated that so much of his mind is now taken up in this just constant attentiveness to his body. Something that was automatic, now he has to be very manual. And then one day he is apparently hit by a truck and wakes up in a fantasy world. And there's this he is very soon met by a girl who's maybe about 14 or so. I don't think they're ever explicit about her age, but she they definitely imply she's 14-ish. Who then sees that he's slightly injured in however he got here, and gives him this poultice that she claims when it's done has healed him completely of his leprosy, which is kind of interesting. He believes he's dreaming. He is absolutely convinced he's dreaming because it's this beautiful fantasy land. She takes him back to her home, and lets him in. She's a very nice girl. Hey, Gamescape, thanks. Thanks for dropping in. And so they have this. So he goes in, beds down for the night, and then that night he wakes up. Let's just say kind of physically excited, in the middle of the night, and he decides, well, it's a dream world. It doesn't matter. So he goes into the girl's room and satisfies his urges. It's a dream, right? Doesn't matter. And then, the next morning he wakes up and he realizes he has not woken up from the dream yet. He's still in this dream world, and he's realized he's not in the dream world. This is some alternate reality, and he just did that. So, and he's horrified by this. He is just incredibly guilt-stricken. And I have not actually gotten to that scene in the book yet. I'm right very close to it. And apparently the thing is, he is also, the legendary hero fated to save the world. And so everyone's like, oh, well, that's terrible, but we really need you to save the world. So we're just going to kind of, forget about all that and brush it under the carpet. And he's like, no, no, I should be punished for this. So it becomes, very much something that is about, justice. And then the series apparently is very much about this idea of, if you do something wrong and the law ignores it, right? What is justice? like what is right and wrong, as opposed to the law and such. So it's a very interesting concept. But yeah, definitely one of those moments that cause a lot of people to throw the book across the room and be like, nope, not reading any more of this. And again, quite understandably. All right, let us add some. I need some. Need a little bit of something on. Do I? No, it's okay. Sometimes the light shines on things, and these look like they're not painted. So I'm gonna add some steel color to some of these minis, just to make them look like they actually have weapons. So that those are not just white. So I'm going to take out a sort of a medium-sized brush for these. I wouldn't mind a smaller brush, but this is all I have that's not clean right now, and I don't feel like cleaning. And I'm fairly confident that I can just wipe this along here. They'll definitely benefit from an extra coat, but you'll see what I'm doing here as I paint this down with this steel color. And this will just give it that extra gleam. Yeah, a lot of people did not like that scene, but again, it is very much intentional. It is very much tied in with the story. So you see how just that silvery thing is very nice, and it actually glistens a bit. So I'm always intrigued in a book that does things like that, that are very shocking, but shocking in a very intentional way. It's not shock for shock's sake, not just shock value. It is, it's like, yeah, no, this is a big deal, and I want to kind of address that. I'm actually going to paint the tip of this so it has a bit of metal on the end. I did brown on the others, but I'm going to try metal tip on this one. Yeah, it's kind of nice. I can live with that. In fact, I think I'm going to do that on this one too. I'm going to give them all metal pommels. That's pretty normal. Put that in there. Yeah, I like that. Oh, we need to do the arrowhead on this bow. So I'm just going to brush some of this onto there. It'll be really hard to see, frankly, but it'll add a little bit. Yeah, that's nice. Again, you would never be able to catch that on camera, and I doubt anyone would be able to really notice that at the table. But it's just one of those little details that brings it to life, where just the eye, in taking the entire thing in, will notice that little detail. I think same thing actually on that pommel. Just making that metallic really finishes that off nicely. Cool. And like I said, I want to do, I think I'm going to do the same metal. I'm going to try the same metal for his helmet. Just get that all nice and there. Oops, my Alexa is telling me to go to bed soon, which I will try to honor. Yeah, that looks nice. That's pretty cool. I'm rather happy with the metal helmet. It's pretty cool. I'm also going to actually just get a little bit of metal paint, if I can, and run it around the edge of the shield, like it's an iron band or a metal band around it. Not all the edges, not the broken edge, because that wouldn't have it, but just give it that feel of that. Again, just a little detail, and then I'm going to paint those spikes. Get some metal on those spikes, because they would be metal, probably. Again, a lot of this is just looking for details. Oh, and also the horns Little spikes on his feet. Those ridiculous sandals definitely need metallic paint just to give them that extra bit of ridiculousness. Actually, he has little like knee guards too that are clearly like some kind of metal, so I'm gonna give them just a coat of metal paint. Oh, he has a belt buckle. Okay, yeah, let's go in and just kind of press that. Cool. See how just a little bit of those accents really brings him to life. If it would actually focus. There we go. Just really makes him feel a little more alive. Who else gets metal? They all have their things. I think that's all good. Yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. So let's do some hair. So I have some black, and I think, yeah, they're all gonna have black hair. I need to wash some brushes. So let me go and wash a couple of these right now. I'll be back in a few moments, and we'll give them their hair, and then we will brush this guy with some rub and buff for an interesting fit. Hopefully. 1 second. Okie doke. So, let's do our hair. I'm going to cap off the steel so I don't accidentally put my brush in there. I'm going to go with a nice small brush on this. We will grab our initial guy. And yeah, I think goblins just have black hair. And again, I'm going to have to go and grab some black out of here because it is so hard going into a tub of black and seeing where you are in that tub. I'm okay with wasting a little bit of black here. So I'm just going to go here and put some black on him, on that hair. Yeah, the resin definitely helps a lot. The satin I'm not thrilled with. I'd rather have like a more matte finish. So they end up with kind of glossy hair, which kind of like, oh, they look like models sometimes, like fashion models as opposed to little mini models. But that's okay. It's a very minor thing. So we will just brush this down. One of the other keys here is to not overload your brush with paint, because you got to be really careful with your lines. You don't want it to just kind of run everywhere. It's just really easy to accidentally brush paint onto somewhere where you don't want paint. Cool. So there's a little more on the top there. Okay. So there's the back of the head painted with some black paint. So yeah, and that makes him just look a little bit more realistic with the black hair. Again, kind of hard to see in this light. So then we'll do him. Second verse, same as the first. Just paint down that hair. Again, a lot of this is just looking for details and being like, that should be this color, this should be that color, and going off of that, as opposed to any like real careful plan. You kind of look at the mini a little bit and say, well, let's make the hair that color. Let's make that other detail, give that some metal. Really glad that Target sells these metallic paints. Don't know how I get that effect otherwise. Just paint on, pewter or steel. Pretty amazing. Okay, get the rest of that pushed in there. Cool, cool, cool. Like I said before, it's amazing how just once you get going, it's like, oh, that's how to do that. Now I'm used to these minis. I can just kind of run and just do, do that hair. Just boom, done. Because now I know the topography. Now each of these minis has a slightly different design. I'm actually going to give him a little bit more hair than the others. I'm going a little bit over where his hair normally is. Not intentionally, I just accidentally did that. But I kind of like that. And he has some hair kind of swept over. And then a little bit more along that edge. Back there. There we go. So our Bowman now has some hair. Got to figure out how to make this. I'll just do some manual focus one of these days. And never mind. And then, oh yeah, the weird hair woman. I kind of wanted something weird here. Let me grab some red. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab some red. A lot of red, actually. That's a lot of red. Let me grab a little red. There. It's fine. And then, do I need any more black hair? No, I don't think so. Cool. I'm going to grab a little bit of the black, mix that into the red, and see what we come up with. You see how quickly that black just kills that red. That's nice. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to give her this hair color. So it's this almost blood-colored hair. That's interesting. Oops, I'm painting her ears. Oh! Just realized that. Oh well. I could come back and clean that off, but I don't think anyone's going to notice. Because of all this spiky hair. So there's that hair color, which I'm not horrified by, but I'm frankly not thrilled with that. Come on. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little brighter. Oops, oh, I got paint all over me here. I'm gonna get some more red. I feel bad wasting all this red. But like, you know, if you want the color you want, yeah, see that black is still just kind of nuking the any red that I get. Let's see how much brighter I can get it. That's better. Let's throw some of this in here. Obviously that paint's not really dry yet, but since they're similar colors, I'm not too worried. Like they can blend somewhat. And I want to make sure I don't glob lots of paint in there. That's better though. I definitely like that red better than the brown. Okay. Cool. All right. Yeah, that's her hair color. That's better. Again, sort of a fiery red. That's nice. Cool. So what else do we need to do here? I wanted to do the cobra. Let's do the cobra. I think I'm going to go ahead and take off that glove, and then we'll do some rubber buff. Let's see here. We've got some autumn gold. Oh, well, I need some paper towels. One sec. Ideally, you should use like actual fabric on this. Like you should use, you know, a rag. But I rarely, you know, I don't go through that many clothes. All right, let's cap off some of these. This is the black. Where's the cap for the black? It's right here. It's too easy to knock over a pot. Brown, brown, where'd you go? This is why we should cap things. Oh, it's right over there with a stick in it. So we'll get that out. Okay. And then I will need some more gloves because rub and buff gets everywhere. But rub and buff gives you a really neat feel to something. And I do not know, frankly, if hands are a little wet with the old gloves, so they don't go into the new glove very easily. You definitely want some hand protection when you're doing the rub and buff. And it's, you know, kind of toxic. Don't know how toxic, but one of those things where you really don't want this like sitting on your hands much. So we've got autumn gold. We've got Grecian gold, European gold, and then like antique white, pewter, and ebony black. So between these, I think I want this color. I just like that for my creature, my snake. So I'm going to try this. I'm just gonna squeeze some of this out. Yeah, we all know what that looks like. And then put some of that on a paper towel, and then just start rubbing that. And hopefully it's not going to break. I just don't know how, you know, given how delicate this resin is, I'm a little worried. Also, I may have wanted to do like an undercoat because I can't really get this into all the nooks and crannies. So we'll see where this goes. We'll see what this ends up looking like after I do it. But you see what the rub and buff does in terms of making this look just really flashy. Now, I think the print on this, or I think the file is meant to be like an actual snake, but I know I used a file like this for a statue, and I'm not sure if I want this to be like an actual statue or like a, some kind of giant snake that has very golden-like scales or appendages, or where like it just, it really looks like it's made of gold or of metal. I'm just not sure. It's definitely very big by standard sort of D&D and miniature scales. Scales. And yeah, it's kind of getting everywhere. So I may want to come back in and clean up some of this. Yeah, I can't really get in all of these areas, and the base is a problem because it gets on the base. Yeah. And the base looks like it's kind of partially metallic too, and kind of gives away the secret, if you will. So that's not ideal. It's just so hard to get in all the little nooks and crannies, or crooks and nannies, whatever you want to call them. So I'll see if I can't get in. Or up. Yeah. Okay. And it's looking pretty nice. Can I get in? Alright, let me get a fresh bit of paper towel and a fresh bit of rub and buff, and then try to get in those little spots. And so I have a metallic copper paint, but it just does not look anywhere near as good as this. Right? This is just another level of accuracy in terms of looking like, wow, that looks like metal. Okay. Yeah, that's okay. So there's my metal snake, sort of gold snake. I could get in a little bit. Yeah, let me try to get in underneath. Can I get in down there? Yeah, a little. Cool. Yeah, there's my snake. Huh? Hello, Snakey. There we are. Fairly in focus. Definitely looks golden, doesn't he? That's pretty awesome. Very happy with that. Cool. And that's just rub and buff. That's just taking some of the rub and buff and putting it down and just using a paper towel. It actually works a lot better than it has had in the past. So that's cool. All right, and you can see how there's stuff all over these things, which is why I wore gloves. All right. Oops, I see there's a little bit on the top that I could also rub a little bit extra on. A spot there. Okay. So that does it for tonight. We have all of our little resin minis painted. We have our grubs painted. I will probably at some point go back over these grubs and add what we call a black wash. So if I take some diluted black paint and rub it over this, it will sink into the gaps and such, and just give it some extra definition and detail. But not tonight. That will do it for us for Workshop Wednesday for tonight. Hope you found this useful and helpful. And yeah, this is just simple little brushes and regular acrylic paints just from like Target, and it's that easy, frankly. So thanks for watching. Excuse me. Thank you for watching. Until next time, make something.